Most people will go their entire lives not knowing what their purpose is. This used to be a thought that bothered me so much. How some people will grow up and fall into some predetermined path laid out for them, never once considering that there might be more out there, that they're living a life on rails. Now that I'm older, I see that those same people might be on the right path after all, because they're happier than I am. I am not a happy man. I wake up with the same concerns that fuel the pain that accompanies me into what little sleep I get. The feeling that I'm meant to be in a different place entirely, and that it is right there, at arm's length, but completely unreachable. Is what I want to be what I'm meant to be? I've wanted to create, to make art for what feels like my whole life. It is one fixation that has remained a constant. I still remember watching movie magic on Discovery Kids and feeling how I was seeing exactly what my future holds. But 20-something years later, it is still just a thing that I want, not the thing that I'm doing, what I'm meant for. But it's still there, in me, fueling me, inspiring me, torturing me, hurting me. In my life, I've been a doctor, a pro wrestler, an architect, an engineer, a musician. But what I've really always been is a curious person, whose curiosity is fueled by and expressed through storytelling. I'm doing it right now, whether it's just for me writing this or you reading it or listening to this. I am not a dramatic person. Stories are honestly just the best way that I can process the world around me. The only real way anything makes sense. Is anyone really meant to be anything? I find it fascinating how we as a species feel it necessary to assign meaning to so much of our existence, as if we're not just simply the result of a random sequence of events that made for the conditions that allow for single cells to mutate into humans before mutating into whatever will inhabit this rock eons after we're gone. On a micro level and a cosmic level, we're just passing through. We are little more than a fart in this galactic wind. There's absolutely nothing special or unique about our time on Earth, other than being cursed with conceptual thought and the awareness of self. What defines what you're meant to be? How do you know? It's the fact that through hundreds of interests throughout my life, filmmaking has remained the constant, evidence that I am meant to be a filmmaker. Proof that I tapped into some hidden dimension and understood that at some point in my life, I will be making films. But does that mean that I didn't choose what I wanted to be then? Growing up and even as an adult, I've often wished that my brain wasn't the way it was. When I was younger, I wished that I was dumber, more ignorant, or, whatever that means. I knew that I was depressed when I was in elementary school. I knew that my brain had too much going on to understand itself. As an adult, I understood that what I really wished for was a brain that was not neurodivergent. After years of suspicion, curiosity, research, and avoided or forgotten phone calls, I learned that amongst other things, I have ADHD, and I've since understood how it is my biggest strength and my biggest obstacle. I refuse to call it a weakness because, trust me, it is anything but weak. This thing kicks my ass every fucking day. I have wished for life to slow down a little bit, but what I really wanted was to understand my brain. It is infuriating when today I realize not just how not built for neurodivergent people this world is, but how actively hostile it is towards neurodivergent people. The way the economy works, education, jobs, voting, it's all so hostile and unwelcoming by design. But social media apps and companies that are built on engagement metrics feast off of us. You go on YouTube because you want to find productivity tips, but 90% of productivity YouTube is neurotypical people or grifters. And it makes sense. How the fuck is anyone with ADHD or depression supposed to get their shit together long enough to show me how to get my shit together? I convinced myself about 5 or 6 years ago that I wanted to do YouTube as a way to practice my craft, hone my writing, and maybe even make a living. Naturally, I found video essays to be my most natural fit. I get to immerse myself in a topic, write my thoughts on it, and present them in a way that showcases my narrative chops. And I think I'm pretty good at it. The ones that I like the least are the ones that I've tried to cater to a more algorithm-friendly template, and the ones that I've liked the most are the ones that have been the least popular, but I enjoy doing it, so why do I struggle to keep up with it? I find a subject that I am extremely interested in, enough to get 2,500 words on it, no problem, and the moment that I'm supposed to put it all together, I freeze. I'm paralyzed. I don't know if it's performance anxiety or a fear of failure or just an overwhelming distraction that pulls me out of it. Maybe it's all of it. Or maybe it's the fact that I'm currently being tortured by my need to slow down my work schedule, but also need to pay rent. That I want to quit that job, but I can't find another one. That I wish so desperately that our systems were better designed for the greater good and not just the richest few. Maybe it's the creeping feeling that every time I write something, I feel closer to my goal of creating for a living, but can't bear the feeling of failure if that goal never actually happens. I fear what will happen to me if I let go of this desire that will never manifest. It is, at times, the energy source that drags me through the unpleasant valley that is my depression. But it also mocks me, knowing that I will never get close enough to grab it. It stares at me, respecting the effort, but still laughing at the futility of it. I just turned 31. I fear that 10 years from now I'll look back on my life and see what a waste it all was. How foolish of me to think that just because I love art that I have any right to make it. That just because I enjoy peace and quiet that I'll achieve it. That just because I would like to, at least for a year, not be burdened by my finances, by my brain, by global pandemic, by unresolved traumas, by my deviated septum or my herniated disc. I'm only 31, but I'm already 31. And I'm tired. I'm tired of becoming overwhelmed by the nonstop barrage of inspiration, ideas, hyperfixations, and obsession. Quirks of the brain that I will literally never be able to fully address. I'm tired of planning to take some time off from work only to find myself overloading my work schedule instead, out of some fear that bills will go unpaid, employment will be lost, or that I'll have only myself to blame. It's really easy for me to point to my job as the source of so much that weighs on me, and it is true that my job weighs heavy on me. It is also true that for a while after the pandemic hit, I suddenly found myself with a lot of time off. Time that surfaced a lot of old demons anew. Time that I finally understood that as much as external factors are to blame, so are internal factors. So now, not only can I not do anything about what's out there, but I can't do anything about what's in here. Most days I struggle with accepting that this is real, that the life I live is actually happening, that the people I interact with are alive, that this is all true. It's not a sense of doubt or some conspiracy about a simulation. I just truly feel like I am not entirely alive, that everything and everyone around me carries a layer of unreality. Does it mean that this is all a long nightmare, or a coma, or an overextended recap of my life before I realized that I actually died years ago? Everything seems to blur together, too slow to notice, but too quick to do anything about it. Life on modern Earth is a miserable, surreal experience, so why should I accept it as real? And if it's not real, or if it is real, if I were to somehow receive confirmation of one or the other, what am I supposed to do with that information? I am not that attached to being alive. It's not that I want to kill myself. It's just, I sometimes would like to not be a part of any of this. There's no not awkward way of saying it, but some nights I feel like I don't want to wake up in the morning. There are days where I wonder when I'll decide to be done with all of this. Will it be when I let go of my creativity? Or when I quit my job? If I were single, it might be easier, cleaner, but that's not the case anymore. As much as I love my partner, I am painfully aware that this alone does not a fulfilling life make. Not for me. I've never wanted to be defined by who I'm with or what corporation employs me. I've always felt that I was never meant for such a life. But what is any one of us meant for? I'm meant to love my family, to love my partner. I'm meant to work hard and reap the benefits eventually. I'm meant to deal with a nose that makes it pretty fucking hard to get a good night's sleep. I'm meant to face a lifetime of depression that makes it pretty fucking hard to get a good night's sleep. I'm meant to deal with brain disorders that make it so everything looks different, feels different, harder, more intense, makes it so it's hard for me to tell what's real and what's not, and also makes it so my brain makes connections that few other people can. I'm meant to perceive and interpret the world in a very different way. I could only be an artist. I'm meant to be an artist. But every day I feel more and more that there's less and less art left in me. Like my purpose has an expiration date. And I don't know what to do with that realization.